Have you ever been stabbed in the back? No fun, is it? Betrayal is one of the worst things. It's been said that it's easier to forgive an enemy than it is to forgive a friend. Oh, how true it is. Trust is earned, respect is given, and loyalty is demonstrated. But betrayal of any one of those is to lose all three. Have you been there? Today we are diving in and talking about betrayal and how we can work through this with a faith habit that will allow us to heal. Join me for today's episode of Faith Habits for Success as we talk all about betrayal.
Faith habits connect your everyday behaviors with your belief system. Rather than letting the pressures and popularity of this world define you, the Faith Habit Show for Success will keep you focused on God's priorities for your life. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Lisa Toney.
Oh my goodness, friends. Welcome to today's episode of Faith Habits for Success. It's so good to have you here. I'm Lisa Toney, your host, and today we are talking all about betrayal. Have you been there? Have you been stabbed in the back by someone who was close to you? I think one of the first and most powerful times in my life was a time that I felt very betrayed, and I was very young. It was back in high school, and I had been dating a guy for 2.5 years. I was pretty sure we were going to get married. And all of a sudden I started noticing that he was acting different around my best friend. Now, I had been best friends with her since we were 6 years old, since we were in first grade. And all of a sudden I started noticing that they were interacting very differently together. She would put her hand on his shoulder and she would laugh at his jokes a little too long. And I started thinking, what is going on? And even at the very young age of 17, I knew deep within my soul that something was not right. So I handled the whole situation very maturely. I wrote my boyfriend a note and said, what is going on? Do you just not want to be with me anymore? Or is it her? Do you want to be with her? And I still remember talking on the phone very late at night, way later than I was supposed to be on the phone, hidden under the covers. And I remember him saying it was option B. He wanted to be with her, not me. Oh man, my world just kind of blew up. I was so hurt because I felt betrayed by him and I felt betrayed by her, which meant I felt betrayed by all men and I felt betrayed by all women. I just couldn't believe it. I was so angry at him, but man, I was just enraged at her. I didn't think girlfriends were supposed to treat each other like that, especially a best friend. I felt so wounded, so stabbed in the back, and I didn't know how to process all those emotions, how to deal with that kind of betrayal that turned into just rage and anger. Whew. Have you been there? Anytime we get betrayed, it is such a place of being hurt because betrayal is relational, isn't it? It is something that usually comes from someone that we had built some trust with, and that's why it hurts so badly to feel betrayed. And that's why it says you feel stabbed in the back. You let that person get close enough to you to embrace you. And instead of an embrace, you got a knife in the heart. And that's what makes it hurt so bad. I think most of us have probably been betrayed at some point in our lives, whether it was by a best friend or a boyfriend or a spouse. Oh, those wounds are deep and hard. Or by a business partner or a friend. Lots of people in our lives maybe have betrayed us at one time or another, but maybe one just is even harder to think through and handle. You can feel that pain a little bit more than the others. So today we're going to talk a little bit about betrayal and what that looks like. And right off the bat, I want to offer to you just a handout that's a guide for you, and it's just some scriptures and a process to help you work through healing. You can find it at lisatoney.com/healing. And I think it'll be really helpful to you. It's just a relational guide to kind of work through some of the emotions, how to process them. I don't know if you're anything like me, but when I am in the midst of that kind of powerful emotion, it's kind of hard to think clear. And so I remember when I went through that time in my life, I really kind of spiraled out. I got depressed, I stopped sleeping, I stopped eating, I just was not in a good place. And it took my mentor, a really respected pastor in my life, to kind of pick me up and say, hey, Lisa, this is where the rubber meets the road. If you really are a person of faith, if you really believe Jesus is who he says he is, then you need to trust that he has a better future for you, even though this has been so hard and you feel this brokenness. And I remember leaning into a scripture that has been very powerful to me. It says, love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, and hold fast to him, for the Lord is your life. And that's found in Deuteronomy 30:19. And I just loved that because I was like, that's true. I mean, these people have hurt me, but there's more to my life than those relationships. The Lord really is my life, and that's what I want to focus on and center on. So perhaps if you're in the midst of a healing season, or maybe the betrayal is really fresh for you, I want to just encourage you to head on over to lisatoney.com/healing, down that free guide, and that'll give you some ways to start to think through and process some healing in your life. Because betrayal is relational. It is relational. It really hits home because it is a matter of the heart. When we trust someone, we give them a little piece of our heart, don't we? We say, I will be vulnerable with you. I will let you get to know me. And that trust begins to build. And as soon as someone betrays us and acts contrary to how we thought they should act, that hurts. And it leaves a lot of scars because it kind of makes us feel a little crazy, doesn't it? It calls into question our decision making. Like, should I have trusted that person? Why did I not see this coming? How did I not see this coming? And we feel kind of silly, or maybe a little stupid even, that we could not see that coming. Well, that's just it. Betrayal usually comes out of nowhere. We don't know that it's coming. And that's one of the reasons that it's so wounding, because we feel caught off guard. Someone swept us off our feet, not in the good way, but left us falling, sitting on our backside and feeling embarrassed and really wounded. Now, as a person of faith, as we think about the idea of betrayal, it's so helpful to realize that Jesus knows how that feels. I mean, he knows how that feels because Judas betrayed him. One of his closest friends, his disciples, Judas betrayed Jesus. That's the story of Easter that kind of kicks off the whole Holy Week, is Judas betraying Jesus with that kiss, that moment where he went and he revealed which one Jesus was to the authorities so they could arrest him. And, a Judas kiss is something that we talk about as a symbol of betrayal. And it's just so heartbreaking because a kiss is supposed to be something that's intimate and special and that builds trust. And Judas used it to break that trust, to show betrayal. So Jesus knows how that feels. And often we highlight Judas as the bad guy who betrayed Jesus. But do you remember how many disciples stood with Jesus all the way to the cross? Big zero. None of them were there. All of them walked away. They all went into hiding when things heated up and Jesus got arrested. They all scattered. They all took off. And so Jesus was betrayed not just by Judas, but by all the disciples. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And so there was a lot around this story of Easter, of Good Friday and the Holy Week, about betrayal. And it's an important place in Scripture for us to be able to connect with when we're feeling these emotions of betrayal. Now, here's the thing. Jesus stayed the course to the cross to provide a way out for us from this emotion. Even though he was betrayed so deeply, he kept going with what God had called him to do. He moved forward. He kept the momentum going. He stayed true to God. So even though he had been betrayed, he responded with loyalty. Now, loyalty is the exact kind of polar opposite of betrayal. Betrayal is undermining someone, and loyalty is staying true to them. And so Jesus kind of met this disparity of betrayal, that's something that the enemy breeds. That's something that Satan wants to produce in us because it creates enmity and strife between people, brokenness of relationship, which is Satan's specialty. But Jesus said, no, we're not going to let that win. I am going to stay the course and be loyal to God and show people what loyalty looks like. Jesus remained loyal to God to show us what loyalty is all about. See, lies are the ultimate betrayal in a relationship. And so if we want to be a people that learns how to be loyal, part of that is leaning into being people that don't tell lies, people that are tellers of truth. When we tell truth to each other, we build back that intimacy, we build back that relationship. And that's what's so hard to get back, isn't it, when you've been betrayed? I know. I prayed, I think, for almost an entire year to be able to forgive my friend and my boyfriend. It took a very long time. And I didn't want to be one of those people that said, I forgive you, and not really mean it or feel it. Now, I know Scripture calls us to, keep short accounts and not let the sun go down in our anger. But I also really wanted to be authentic with it. And so for me, it was really hard for me to say, I forgive you, when I did not feel it. I really felt like doing more damage to them rather than forgiving them. And so I just had to work through that process. And I was committed to the process. I remember going to bed every night saying, Lord, help me to forgive her. Lord, help me to forgive him. Help me to forgive. I remember hitting my pillow every night with those words on my mouth, on my lips. And so maybe that is a place to start for you. If you have been betrayed and you are still carrying around a lot of those wounds, I get it. It's hard, but we don't want to keep them with us, right? I mean, you can carry that pain around and operate out of it, or you can work on pulling that wound out. But I want you to do that with Jesus. And I really believe that Jesus knows how hard that is for us. I mean, he created us. He knows our places of woundedness. And so, if he is with you in that process, I believe he is going to be faithful to help you get to that place of forgiveness. And I'm not going to push you to go there, but I know Jesus says if we can get to that place, then our lives are going to be so much more free. And we'll be able to trust again. And that took me a long time to be able to, again, find someone who I would call a best friend, or even a man to date, because it was hard for me to trust again. And so to rebuild that trust, we have to go slow. We have to pull the splinters of betrayal out, and we have to learn what loyalty is. And one way that we can receive that loyalty to build that trust again is to start to show loyalty to someone. And so it's a process, and I get that. I do remember a time where I met her in the parking lot many months later. It was almost a full year. And I don't even know what came over me that day. I was just able to say, I forgive you. And I meant it. And I was free from some of that pain and that bitterness. Now, it was such a poignant point in my life, though. I mean, if I spend a lot of time thinking about it, I can still conjure up a lot of those emotions because it was so deep in me. But I was free. I was able to forgive. And it doesn't mean that we had this beautiful reconciliation and we became best friends again. That never happened. There was just too much pain and brokenness and damage that had been done. And sometimes people ask me, did they go on to get married? I'm like, no, they didn't get married, but they did go to prom together. And when you're in high school, that's worse than getting married. So, there was still a lot of pain that was a result of watching that relationship and feeling rejected, feeling betrayed. But I had Jesus, and you have Jesus, and he is able to faithfully get us through that. And, none of us, our paths all went different ways, and God had different plans for us. And that's hard to see in the moment. But I want to believe that you can work through that process as well. So go ahead and jump on over to lisatoney.com/healing. I'd love for you to download this guide so that you can begin that process if that's something that you're working through, and just have some good resources for some steps to take, what that looks like, some scriptures to encourage you in your process of healing. Now, I know that betrayal makes us doubt ourselves. It makes us doubt who we can trust and who we are. But I just want to reaffirm your identity in your worth in Jesus. You are who Jesus says you are, not who people who betray you say you are. Often there's a whole swarm of lies and bitterness and anger that's all caught up in that process of betrayal. And, healing and forgiveness take time, and you need to be gentle with yourself, and you need to make sure that your identity is firmly rooted in who Jesus says you are. Because truly, he believes that he has a good hope and a future for you. He has good things in store for you. So I want you to lean into those, hold on to them, and believe that there's better days ahead.
Easy, intentional, and powerful. Faith habits. Get your free Power Up prayer guide today at lisatoney.com/powerup. Thanks so much for joining me today on Faith Habits for Success. Here's to good faith habits, my friend. Be strong and courageous and stand firm in your faith. See you next time. Bye for now.